everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to apply the law on attempts. In this video we're going to be looking at a scenario on attempts and looking at how you would go about answering that using the idea structure. Let's start then by having a look at the scenario that we've been given before we look at the structure and how we'd go about answering it. So the situation that we've got is that Lucy's decided to poison Liam and she's bought some cyanide from Amazon. She's put a big dose into a lasagna that she's made for him. When Liam arrives home from work, she wimps out and she throws the lasagna away. A week later, Lucy decides to try again. She buys what she thinks is poison from Kate Flatley, but actually it's Smarties. She dissolves the Smarties into his tea and gives him the cup. And you're being asked here to advise whether Lucy is criminally liable for the attempted murder of Liam. In this situation, we can see that Liam hasn't died because she didn't actually give him the poison. What she gives him is Smarties, which obviously isn't going to kill him. So we haven't got murder because he's not dead. But you're being asked to discuss attempted murder. So should she be guilty of the crime of attempted murder for poisoning his lasagna and giving him these dissolved Smarties? When you get a scenario like this in the exam, the first thing you should do is read it like we've just done and go through and highlight issues that have arisen in the scenario. And you need to try and work out what the answer is, obviously, before you jump in and start trying to answer it. In order to do that, you need to think back to the law on whatever it is you're being asked to advise on. So we're being asked about attempts here. So it'd be useful if we just remind ourselves of how a person is guilty of an attempt before we try and work out this answer for Lucy. So if you recall the law on attempts, it comes from the Attempts Act, and the actus reus is that our defendant must do something which is, quote, more than merely preparatory to the commission of an offence. So they've done more than mere preparation, they've actually set out on the offence that they're trying to commit. That was phrased in a slightly different way in Gulliver. The judge, Lord Lane there, said that you were guilty of an attempt if you'd, quote, embarked on the crime proper. And then we had a number of cases, Boyle and Boyle, Tosti and White, etc., that all show where the actus reus was or wasn't met for an attempt. So it helps us to explain when an attempt is going to have been met. Remember that the defendant can be guilty of attempting the impossible, and that comes under section 1(2). So in the case of White, we saw that in causation as well. The guy tried to poison his mum. He hadn't used enough poison. She happened to die of an unrelated heart attack. Now, even though he hadn't caused her death because he'd not used enough poison, obviously it's wrong to have tried to poison his mum, and he was guilty of an attempt through attempting the impossible, i.e. it was impossible to actually kill her with the amount of poison that he'd used, but nonetheless, he had still embarked on the crime proper or done something that was more than merely preparatory to the commission of the offence. The mens rea for an attempt is intention to commit whatever offence it is you're trying to commit. So to come back to White, he clearly had intent to commit murder, he just wasn't able to carry it out. And we can see here from Whybrow that attempted murder needs intention to kill. So we need to think about all of this when we're looking at the situation with Lucy. So I'll jump back to the Lucy slide then so we can have a look at this. Now you can see that there are two issues in this scenario. Firstly, she's put poison in his lasagna, and secondly, she's given him the Smarties. If I was answering this in the exam, I would be quickly highlighting that she's put this dose in the lasagna. He's arrived home from work. Oh, she throws the lasagna away. So at that point, I would be highlighting that. And then my next issue, it's a week later, she's trying again, and she dissolves Smarties into his tea, and this time she's given him the cup. So they're my two issues. And always deal with them one by one. So firstly, she's put a dose of cyanide into his lasagna. And you've got to discuss at that point, has she met the actus reus? Has she embarked on the crime proper? And arguably, if she'd just bought the cyanide from Amazon and done nothing more, that wouldn't be more than merely preparatory, that's just preparation. Here, though, she's put it into the lasagna, so it seems like she's embarked on the crime proper. However, she throws it away before she gives it to him. So even though she has taken steps here, I think the fact that she hasn't actually given him the lasagna means that she hasn't actually embarked on attempting to kill him. She's not given him the lasagna yet. So it seems like she's not done an attempt at this point. And then she gets what she thinks is poison from Kate, and they happen to be Smarties. Now, at that point, she dissolves Smarties into his tea and she gives him the cup. So this situation is different to this one because here she's actually given him the cup of what she thinks is poison. So at this point, she has embarked on the crime proper. Now, we're thinking, well, it's Smarties, it's never going to kill him. But remember, section 1(2) is going to apply, and you can be guilty of an attempt where you are attempting the impossible. As long as the person thinks that they're poisoning somebody, that will be enough for an attempt. Think about our mens rea here. We know that for attempted murder, she needs intention to kill, Y-brow. And because she thinks it's poison, and she's given him a cup of what she thinks is poison, intending to kill him, she meets the mens rea. So just reading through, highlighting that, I've identified that I think she's maybe not guilty of an attempt at this point, but she is guilty of an attempt here. So I know what the answer is, but we're going to have a look at what you would do in terms of writing it out. So let's have a look at the structure that we would follow here. In order to apply the law on attempts, we always use the idea structure. So you identify who your defendant is and what offence they might have committed. You define the offence that they might have committed using the correct actus reus and mens rea. You then explain the actus reus and mens rea with your cases. And then finally, you apply the actus reus and the mens rea to your character. So if we think about the Lucy situation, in my identification, my first sentence would be, Lucy might be liable for attempted murder when she poisons the lasagna and puts Smarties in Liam's tea. Make sure you point out when they might have done that. Okay, so point out in the scenario when she puts it in the lasagna and when she puts it in the tea, because then you're showing the examiner that you know what might be a crime. And we've already discussed the fact it might not be an attempt when she poisons the lasagna, but you're still showing the examiner that that is a possibility, and it's showing that you understand the law. You then define. So to define an attempt, you would use the Criminal Attempts Act 1981. Actus reus is our defendant must do something which is more than merely preparatory. Mens rea, they must have intention to commit the offence. You would explain it using your cases. So I'll flick back to this slide we looked at a minute ago. So you're going to explain all of the key cases that we've looked at in class. And once you've explained those cases, you're then going to apply them to the scenario. And you need to be really clear. Does your defendant meet the actus reus and how you know this? Does your defendant meet the mens rea and how you know this? You can't just say Lucy meets the actus reus because you could have guessed that. Okay, you need to say she meets it because X, Y, and Z. My next slide, I've actually written out, and it's in bullet points just so you can see, but I've done a bullet point answer to the Lucy scenario we've just been looking at. Don't worry about the red ones that are on here. I would just use that in class as a rough mark scheme, okay? But don't worry about that. Let's just have a look at how we've answered the question. So our I identify Lucy might be liable for the attempted murder of Liam in relation to the cyanide in the lasagna and the Smarties. My actus reus, an action which is more than merely preparatory. Mens rea, intention to commit the offence. And I've done my AR in green and my MR in pink. And then I'm going to explain what I've just defined using my cases. So the actus reus must be more than merely preparatory, embarking on the crime proper. I would go through the cases. These are just bullet pointed on my screen so I can fit it all on. You would obviously say things like in Boyle and Boyle, the actus reus was met because. Okay. I've talked about possible to attempt the impossible, shiv puri, and then I've got my mens rea there, intention to kill, whybrow. And then going on to apply the law back to Lucy. And we've already discussed this, but when Lucy poisons the lasagna, she possibly meets the actus reus because she's embarked on the crime proper. However, she throws the lasagna away. So it seems more likely that it's just preparation. And it's fine in the exam to be saying things like it's more likely, it's possible. Okay, you don't have to be able to give a definite answer. And a lot of the time in law, there isn't a definite answer. It will depend. So although she has intention to kill, there's no crime at this point because she's thrown it away. She then goes on to dissolve Smarties in his tea. That's more than merely preparatory. She's embarked on the crime proper. It doesn't matter that she can't actually kill him with the Smarties because it's possible to attempt the impossible. She clearly intends to kill Whybrow, so therefore Lucy's guilty of the attempted murder of Liam. As I say, this is very bullet pointy, just so it would fit on a slide. You will write in nice full sentences. But nonetheless, you can see here how you get a nice answer when you follow this idea structure. And you'll notice that in my application, I've gone through it in the order that it occurred in the scenario. So I've started off with the lasagna, I've dealt with that. I've then talked about the Smarties and dealt with that. And that means you're going to get a nice logical answer to the scenario and you're not going to get confused. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. That's how you apply the law on attempts.